Is Spotify nothing but a big ol' rotten, greedy, art-thieving bully? If recorded music is labor, should the drainage engineer make royalties every time it rains? Why are we all making music anyway? Did our hunter-gatherer ancestors dream of careers as indie singer-songwriters? With Spotify Wrapped once again dominating our social media feeds, people are once again having heated debates over streaming payouts and other important industry issues. These debates get quite heated and intense, with lots of emotions that often hijack what should be a robust and solutions-based conversation among working artists and creators. So I figured I'd give my .003 on the matter, in the best way I know how, creatively and with an aim to empower and bring creative minds and hearts together. In order to weigh with nuance the pros and cons of a streaming platform such as Spotify, we have to look at the whole picture of our human species making music across time. The Smithsonian National Museum of Natural History has, in its collection, musical instruments that prove human beings were making music 35,000 years ago. It's safe to say that indie rock was the first genre of music and came into the world when an early hominid independently banged two rocks together in rhythm, making a dank beat and giving birth to the most influential DIY scene the world has ever known. Scientists don't know for sure, but there is evidence that human beings made music before they could even talk, as a kind of proto-language. We can only theorize why our species began to make music. We cannot know for sure. One theory, first proposed by anthropologist Siegfried Nadel, is the one that holds the most water for me. He thought that human beings began making music to enhance communication with the divine or otherwise supernatural. This explains the connection music has to religion, as music has a way of guiding the spirit into communion with spiritual forces we cannot consciously understand and can only experientially feel. Every music lover has felt this inexpressible connection to the emotionally charged quality of great music. There is just something divine about it. Music across time has always inarguably been a kind of cultural glue, sometimes a recreational entertainment, sometimes a vessel for communion with the mystic. Music has first and foremost always been a community activity that bonded groups of humans together. With 35,000 years of musical history and only about 12 minutes to make my point, I'm going to jump ahead just a smidge. In pre-industrial America, where recorded music wasn't even dreamed of, music must have been one of the most valued parts of life. Let's not mince words. Life has been extremely difficult for the vast majority of our species' history. Music was a way for people to escape for a while from their hardship, and a way to make meaning in the face of their troubles. Abolitionist Frederick Douglass said that the singing of the African slaves in America was a testimony against slavery and a prayer to God for deliverance from chains. This is all to say that the larger history of music, before music was widely commercially available, tells us a story of people coming together around it to experience catharsis and fellowship, especially in the face of hardship. Now let's talk about the last 100 years. Keep in mind that the last 100 years begins with the first record player becoming commercially available and ends with effectively every recorded piece of music ever made being available on the internet at the push of a button. So the last 100 years on Earth have been pretty big for human music. In that 100 years, an entity emerged in culture that effectively changed the way our species views music. I'm speaking, of course, about the rock star. At the end of World War II, the American economy was booming, leading to a rise in teenage children having spending money. This led to a dramatic shift in the money-spending habits of American teens, effectively opening up a new market to a new demographic with serious buying power. Elvis Presley is emblematic of this cultural shift, and in many ways can be seen as the original iconic rock star. This left a permanent and indelible mark on the psyche of our collective culture, and paved the way for ever more icons to be made and sold. Record companies put massive amounts of money into developing the careers of young musicians, and with photographs and videos, turned their images into aspirational god figures, dream fuel for the young would-be artists who were influenced by them. These icons, which were made possible by massive technological advancements, represent the first cut from the blade of the double-edged sword that is the modern music industry. While their wide cultural reach and colorful, unprecedented visual signatures catalyzed the subsequent pushing of the boundaries of what popular art could be, they also catalyzed a shift from the humble, community-based roots of music to the idea of the superstar. The singular genius, the sex god, the human ego on steroids, an irresistible fantasy to many young people. Many of these rock and roll and pop icons died young and tragically, imploding in on themselves, collapsing under the weight of their own legends. There is no community safeguards to keep people grounded when they are the physical embodiment of a fantasy. And so, as the double-edged sword slashes forward, cutting new avenues for the fulfillment of wilder dreams, it also cuts backwards, nicking at us, and sometimes lobbing off parts of us that are connected to music in a more pure and unegoic way. It slashes forward through the 90s as digital CDs come to prominence. Kurt Cobain is singing to an audience of millions, and look at that, he dresses normal. He looks just like a regular guy. He looks like me. I could do that. The double-edged sword, razor sharp with cultural commentary and artistic value, brings so much meaning to this confusing world, positively affecting so many people. But it also cuts backwards, leaving a landfill of Walmart Nirvana t-shirts in its wake. The sword, unstoppable now, demanding technology bend to its will, transforms million-dollar studios into commercially affordable DAW workstations, obliterating the financial barrier to entry for every industrious musician willing to learn to record themselves and put their creations into the world. But then comes the backswing, squashing high-resolution audio assets into endlessly, costlessly duplicatable, digitally tradable files. Enter Napster and file sharing. The sword, in the inertia of progress, slices a path to Pandora's box. And it is not some massive looming corporation who opens Pandora's box. It is us. We download all the music we want, indirectly making music free, practically overnight. The sword moves swiftly. Companies like Spotify develop. Companies that offer independent artists a digital hub to distribute their music to the entire world, providing channels of exposure to previously unreachable would-be fans of their work. But the sword cuts backwards, oversaturating the market with music. Everyone is an artist now. Your great aunt has a single coming out. Your dentist just released his debut experimental folk rap EP. Instagram is full to bursting, with all your friends standing out in fields like H&M models, trying to turn themselves into musical icons. The market price of music plummets from the very advancements that made the recording of that music possible. Live by the sword, die by the sword. All in the last 100 years. So many problems solved by technology. So many inroads blown open to so many creators, each with a unique and diverse voice. So much potential for beautiful art to come into the world. The larger technological advancements improve lives and solve large problems for creators. But this in turn inevitably creates other issues because nothing is perfect. The problems left over or created once the big stuff is solved are often more specialized and require thinking that is more nuanced. But in this age of unbridled privilege, our outrage is often extremely disproportionate to the size of these problems. We risk being ineffective when we lose sight of the larger picture, prone to emotions and feelings that do nothing to solve the problems I assume we all earnestly want to solve. It is no stretch to say that the technological advancement artists have enjoyed over the last 100 years is something close to miraculous. Miraculous on the level of the discovery and harnessing of fire, for instance. Imagine cavemen gathered for the first time in human history around a roaring fire that they started with their own hands. There they are, huddled around this new miracle, having taken this massive step forward out of the cold dark of the night and into the warmth of this captured sun. Now imagine one of them turns to the others and says, "Yeah, it's bright and warm and all, but it's not that bright and it's not that warm. Plus it keeps throwing ash in my eyes when the wind blows a certain way." When you look at all this music industry stuff in context, the complexity is obvious. The variables involved too numerous to come away with a black and white, unambiguous opinion about Spotify. History and a careful weighing of pros and cons in the modern age make an uncomplicated viewpoint that lumps things into categories of only good and only bad make no sense. It's just too early in the game to know how it will all pan out, and how artists like myself will have to adapt in order to keep making art. Therefore, when we are developing our own philosophies regarding the creation of our art, we have a choice with how we frame it. We should be wary of disempowering ourselves by creating mental traps that discourage us from engaging with art. We should be wary of creating a wholesale enemy out of our fallible fellow man, and very wary of a viewpoint that denies our own fallibility, especially as it relates to history. An artist that doesn't take into account the fascinating ambiguity inherent in the dramatic tale of our human story is selling themselves way short and risks preaching to the choir, never pushing the boundaries of their thinking and storytelling. We should never lose sight of the privilege we have as creators living in this day and age, a time when the tools for creation are so available and powerful, a time where the means of global distribution, however imperfect, are at our literal fingertips. And I am very open to great ideas that lead to me getting paid more on Spotify. I truly am. With all the love and all the peace, let's all become aware of the double-edged sword we collectively wield in the name of art. Let's not cut each other down with it. Let's not lose sight of the immense opportunity we all have to make art in this modern age. Thank you for watching.